Me personally, I think that Paimon is there so that the player can get used to the idea of having a demon or evil spirit alongside them at every moment of every waking day.
Hi guys, welcome back to Uncle Samuel. So we play Brookhaven.
No, we are not playing no Brookhaven, girl. Welcome to the channel. This is Max Vapor with Truth for the Youth. Today we will be going over a Bible study that addresses one of the characters in Genshin Impact. That character is none other than Paimon, the tiny floating helper of the traveler, who is the self-insert main character of the game. I find it funny that in the game there is no backstory given for Paimon. There is no information given whatsoever as to who she is, where she came from, what she can do, and why she is the first person that the main character meets and ultimately brings this mysterious character along as his traveling companion. For those of you who haven't played the game, the main purpose of the main character in Genshin Impact is to travel from region to region, basically from continent to continent, on the planet that is called Teyvat. This main character is on a journey to find out what happened to their twin. Throughout the course of the game, you learn that the twins were a form of celestial beings that had the ability to hop from one world to another, or basically jumping into different dimensions. They were basically on a never-ending journey, so to speak. However, when they reached the world of Teyvat, they came up against a powerful force that sealed off their power and trapped them in the world of Teyvat. On this journey, the traveler goes to different regions and helps the citizens as well as the rulers of these different regions with whatever problems they might be facing. It gives the player that basic trope of the power fantasy gameplay loop. So the majority of the gameplay is exploration and combat. Of course, it is a gacha game, so there will be a large aspect of the game that involves pulling for different characters, and that, of course, as we know, tends to promote gambling. Some gacha games are so egregious when it comes to their pull rate that they have been banned in certain countries. Even China has had to restrict the children's video game playtime to a certain amount every day. So when it comes to Christians playing a game like Genshin Impact, you are already walking a slippery slope. But back to the game itself. And when you play the game, you learn fairly early that Paimon is utterly useless when it comes to fighting She seems useless when it comes to just about everything besides floating along and annoying people. She just floats and talks non-stop, which many of the people that make up the player base of Genshin Impact have found to be quite annoying over the past 5 years that the game has been in service. With all of that being said, the main question still remains: what is Paimon, and what exactly is Paimon's purpose? Me personally, I think that Paimon is there so that the player can get used to the idea of having a demon or evil spirit alongside them at every moment of every waking day, since that is how it is portrayed in the game. The traveler does not go anywhere in the world of Teyvat without Paimon floating along and being annoying every step of the way. What some people might not know about the character Paimon is that the name comes from the name of a very powerful demon that is mentioned in the Ars Goetia. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's the name of the, I guess you can call it a book. The technical term for it is a grimoire. So not only is Paimon the name of a demon that comes from the Ars Goetia, but basically every single god that the player encounters in the land of Teyvat has a name that is derived from the demons that are brought up or mentioned in the Ars Goetia grimoire. Now, some of you out there might be wondering, what exactly is this Ars Goetia? As I said before, it is a book that is known as a grimoire. A grimoire is a book of magic spells and invocations. It contains instructions for performing magical practices. The Ars Goetia, which is also referred to as the Lesser Key of Solomon, contains the names and details of 79 demons. However, the Lesser Key of Solomon could be said to be the main title of the book, and the Ars Goetia can be considered as one of the chapters of that title, since the Lesser Key of Solomon contains 5 books, one of those being the Ars Goetia. The grimoire that is known as the Lesser Key of Solomon is based on the Testament of Solomon. But do not think that because this grimoire is based on something with a name like the Testament of Solomon, that it was written by King Solomon himself, because it was not. The Testament of Solomon is what is known as a pseudepigraphical composite text, which means that the author of this work is unknown and simply claimed that it was written by King Solomon. The Testament of Solomon describes the building of the temple in Jerusalem that was designed to house the Ark of the Covenant, and states that demons assisted in building this temple because they were controlled and compelled by Solomon through the use of a ring that was given to him by Archangel Michael. The story that is told in the Testament of Solomon states that a young boy was being oppressed by a demon that would appear at sunset and take half of the boy's pay and half of his food, as well as sucking on the thumb of the boy's right hand every day. So the child grew thin, although he was very much loved by the king and was given double wages and a double supply of food. So as I was reading the Testament of Solomon, I wondered to myself, why did the author specifically state the right hand? So after doing a bit of research, the unknown author of this text, which scholars believe was written at some point in time between the 1st and 3rd century, could have kept that detail vague and just said the hand in general. However, the writer of this text knew that the readers of this work would understand the significance of the right hand and the thumb. In the Bible, the hand or right hand is referred to in more than 100 instances throughout the scriptures. Early Christians would realize that the right hand in the biblical context was used in order to refer to ownership, power, or control that the person could exercise. The right hand can be viewed as a synonym for goodness, fairness, and uprightness, while the thumb specifically represents strength, skill, or power. In some cases, the hand can even represent the whole person, symbolizing the achievement of what is promised with the mouth. For example, all Christians know that Jesus Christ, or in the Hebrew, Yahushua HaMashiach, ascended into heaven in order to sit at the right hand of the Father, which is stated in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 12. In the Old Testament, when the whole person is ritually cleansed, the blood from the sacrificial animal was placed on the thumb of the right hand, which is stated in Leviticus chapter 8, verses 23 through 24. By going on this slight tangent, I just wanted to be clear that specific word choices are made for a reason, and I think it shows that although the author of this text is not Solomon, they are definitely a biblical scholar in some form or fashion, and they understand the terms and language that early Christians would use amongst one another and realize the significance of their word choices. I think that the author hoped his insight into such matters would lend his work some form of credibility or authenticity, or at least lead to such. So even if the Testament of Solomon was not included in the canonical Bible for whatever reason, it's clear that hundreds of thousands or even millions of people have ascribed some form of truth to the text, especially when it comes to having in-depth knowledge about demons or evil spirits and their inner workings, because they used the Testament of Solomon as a basis for the lesser key of Solomon, which, like I said before, is where the name Paimon comes from. Even in our current generation of false and pagan religions, there has been an understanding when it comes to the significance of the right hand, which in some religions they even attribute the right hand to symbolize power, authority, and auspiciousness, and frequently it represents the dominant hand when it comes to performing rituals. The Testament of Solomon continues on to say that Solomon notices that this boy has been getting thinner despite the extra wages and food. This is when the child tells his king about the demonic oppression that he is under. After hearing this, King Solomon then prays to the Most High, and he asks of God that he would grant Solomon the authority over this demon. At this point is when the Archangel Michael gives Solomon the ring and tells him that with the ring he is to lock up all demons on the earth and with their help build the temple. The text then continues on and lays out exactly how Solomon went about capturing these demons. It even goes on to describe that Solomon eventually bound the king of demons, which this work titles him as Beelzebul. However, in the game Genshin Impact, one of the archons or rulers of one of the nations of Teyvat has a female ruler, and she is in charge of the nation of Inazuma. She in game is mostly referred to as Raiden Shogun or Raiden A, but she has the quote-unquote heavenly name of Beelzebul. As you can see, the two names are very, very similar and only differ in terms of their spelling. In the Testament of Solomon, it states that Solomon actually gives this king of demons a slight respite from the work that it has been assigned in order so that Solomon can question it about the things of heaven. So they sit together and basically have a small discourse about the things of heaven and how certain things work that the human eye cannot perceive. Eventually, Solomon ends up falling into sin and does not heed the word of the Lord, as it states in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 1, that King Solomon loved many foreign women. In verse 3, it states that he had 700 wives and 300 concubines. His wives turned his heart away from the Lord because he ended up falling deeply in love with them, and they ended up convincing him to build altars to false gods so that his wives could pray to each of their own gods. The scripture states that the Most High had even appeared to Solomon not once but twice and commanded him not to go after foreign gods. But because of Solomon's wives, his heart was eventually turned towards these other gods. His punishment for doing this was that the kingdom was stripped from his lineage. However, the Testament of Solomon covers this issue a bit differently. It states that when Solomon fell in love with a foreign woman and wanted her as a wife, the foreign priests told him that he must worship the gods Rephan and Moloch, which are false gods that I talked about and covered in some of my previous videos. At first, Solomon refuses, but eventually the text basically says that he was essentially tricked by his wife. The woman was informed by the priest to not sleep with Solomon until he had sacrificed to the foreign gods. So the woman brought 5 grasshoppers and told King Solomon to crush them in the name of the foreign gods. And the moment that Solomon did so, the Spirit of the Lord departed from him. The text states that he had become weak and foolish in his words, that he gave in to her demands to build a temple to Rephan, Baal, and Moloch, as well as other idols. Once he did that, the glory of God left him, and his spirit was darkened, and he became sport of the idols and demons. And this particular incident is what Solomon was warned would happen when he summoned a particular demon by the name of Asmodeus or Asmodeus. This demon prophesied that this would happen after King Solomon ordered for Asmodeus to be brought before him. Asmodeus had told Solomon that he would not answer any of Solomon's questions. The demon stated that Solomon's kingdom would be disrupted after a little time, and that Solomon's glory was but for a season. The demon Asmodeus stated that Solomon's tyranny over the demons would be short, and that after this, the demons would again have free range over mankind. The demon goes on to say that humanity would once again revere the demons as if they were gods. The last words of the Testament of Solomon state that this text serves as a warning so that the reader doesn't make the same mistakes that Solomon made, and for the reader to focus on worshiping the Most High and to stay in God's grace and mercy forever. The last sentence of the Testament of Solomon reminds me of the canonical book of the Bible, Proverbs, which is known to have been actually written by King Solomon. The overall message of Proverbs could be described as being to encourage wisdom, instruction, and understanding in order to live a successful and fulfilling life, both in this world and in relationship with God. It emphasizes the importance of fearing the Lord as the foundation of true wisdom and warns against the dangers of foolishness and disobedience. All of this goes back to the point that I made earlier. I believe that Genshin Impact wants the player to get used to having a demon by their side. Even though Paimon is not mentioned in the Testament of Solomon, this entity is brought up in the Ars Goetia, which is inside the Lesser Key of Solomon, which was based on the Testament of Solomon. As shown by the story told in the Testament of Solomon, just the act of having a demon by your side, as King Solomon did, will eventually lead a person down the road to ruin. King Solomon started out as a prince, then a king, and ultimately was known as the wisest person to have ever lived. But eventually, he had all of his gifts stripped away because he did not keep the first commandment. In Deuteronomy chapter 5, verses 7 through 10, the scriptures read, "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above or that is on the earth beneath or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord, your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments." Also in Isaiah chapter 42, verse 8, it reads as follows, "I am the Lord, that is my name, and my glory will I not give to another, neither my praise to graven images." Part of the disconnect, I believe, comes from the fact that Genshin Impact is a game made by a Chinese developer, MiHoYo. The majority of the Chinese population identifies as non-religious. If they do practice a form of religion, it would be considered a mix of Chinese folk religion, which is often a mix of Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. So I can only surmise that in the mind of the Chinese population, they don't see a problem with demons or devils or evil spirits in the same way as Christians. When it comes to the Ars Goetia, they probably see the demons mentioned in that grimoire as nothing more than just mysterious and powerful entities that make up a foreign mythos. Therefore, when the developers read about a powerful demon that goes by the name Paimon, that is noted as being a king of hell and commanding over 20 legions of demons, they probably don't bat an eye when it comes to naming the main character's traveling companion as this demon. Yet the developers also do not do anything without doing a ton of research and tying everything together. And when it comes to world building, they take a very broad and in-depth but also microscopic approach that rewards the lore nerds out there for digging deeper and making connections that the average player would just glance over. So the lore of Genshin Impact is very deep and very well thought out. There is so much more to come as the story of Genshin Impact continues to play out. And there is so much more that the player will uncover when it comes to learning details about Paimon, their abilities, and their past. So, as we draw to a close, when it comes to Christians playing Genshin Impact, we have to be very careful not to get too comfortable with the subtle ideas and messages presented just below the surface when it comes to this game. Now, again, I am not trying to say that Christians can't play this game or that they shouldn't play this game. We as human beings have free will, just like the angels had free will, and some chose to follow the adversary when he rebelled and were thus cast out of heaven. So when it comes to playing the game, I can't tell you what to do one way or the other, but I would like each person to keep in mind that we as Christians are sent out and told to be as humble as doves, yet as sly as serpents. We are also told to protect ourselves from the schemes of the adversary and put on the armor of the Lord. And not only that, we are supposed to be knowledgeable about the schemes that the adversary employs, so that way we do not get caught up in them and taken unawares. So we need to be knowledgeable about certain things like this, because I feel that there is always a deeper meaning behind the things that are done out in the world, especially when it comes to entertainment and games like Genshin Impact, a game that has a global reach and has been installed over 200 million times. I believe that if Genshin Impact / MiHoYo can get the player used to having a demon as a companion that they perceive as somewhat helpful, yes, maybe a little annoying, but ultimately a friend who doesn't mean any harm, someone that is there for you to talk to so that you're not alone, someone that you can build a bond with, someone that you can trust. If the developer, if people in entertainment, no matter what form it is, can get the player or the listener or the watcher to have that type of sentiment when it comes to these demonic entities, then they have successfully made the connection in that person's mind, whether consciously or subconsciously, that demons are overall not that bad. A follow-up question could naturally be, so what's the harm in summoning one just like Solomon did? However, as one can see from the story told in the Testament of Solomon, these demons are the enemy of humanity, and they are the enemy of God and Yahushua HaMashiach. These demons want nothing more than to corrupt humanity. They want to turn the human heart away from the Lord, so that way they can have more company when they are ultimately locked away. So please do not fall for the schemes of the adversary and the people out there who are in league with the adversary and have that antichrist spirit working within them. Do not be caught unawares. Be knowledgeable about certain things. See the connections that are being made when it comes to certain media. And always keep God first. Remember to love the Lord your God with all your heart. And with that being said, I thank you for listening, and I wish you nothing but the best. Good luck, and God bless. By the way, don't forget to do the YouTube stuff, like and subscribe.